Micron Technology is expected to report earnings today, and I've gotten a lot of questions asking what are my thoughts on this and do I believe this is going to be earnings? Well, in today's episode, I want to take a closer look at what is the main way Micron can beat earnings and the kind of evidence we have right now that it might be heading that direction. So let's take a closer look. But before we go anywhere, make sure to hit the thumbs up, make sure to hit the subscribe button, check out the pinned comment for special offers at fool.com/Jose, and check out my special free newsletter at What the Chip Happened, where you get daily semiconductor news for free. So let's get started.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video, and check out fool.com/Jose for the 10 best stocks to buy now. With that link, you get a promotional offer for the subscription service. Now, let's continue with today's episode.
All right, so Micron Technology sitting at 108. Pre-market, the stock is actually up about 1.5%, sitting at $110. Now, year to date, the stock has a high of 153, but we can see from that levels, the stock is down roughly 30%. Now, I do believe Micron has the ability to beat expectations and to actually see a nice stock price increase after earnings only if it does the following things correctly. Obviously, earnings is always a 50-50. We can't know what's happening. But right now, the current evidence is as following. In forms of the memory market, memory is very important in HBM, which is used in AI accelerators. AI accelerators continue to grow. We continue to see more AI chips announced. We kind of see the production of AI chips increase, which means, in theory, memory should be growing with it. The other thing we are seeing is things like local AI being added to phones, being added to more memory in graphics cards for your consumer laptops and your consumer desktops, and being added to other computing edge solutions. So you're also seeing an increase in memory thanks to AI running on locally products as well. So you're seeing a huge demand from AI in two main markets. Now, to understand where Micron's revenue comes, there's two main memory spaces. There's DRAM and NAND. When we think of DRAM, this is their biggest portion, which made up about $5.3 billion out of the $7.7 billion last quarter, which represented roughly 69% of total revenue. Luckily for Micron investors, DRAM, that's where that HBM comes from. That's where all these other memory solutions come for the AI locally space as well. So if we do expect the AI market to continue to grow, then we should be bullish on DRAM. A quick disclosure, I'm by no means a shareholder of Micron. I just am a semiconductor investor, and I am seeing kind of the semiconductor landscape through the eyes of the AI space with companies like NVDA. So now that we understand what are some of the bullish cases, what are kind of the revenue segments for Micron, I want to explain a little bit more why the DRAM market is very important right now. And it's kind of like a turning point compared to normal, right? Because DRAM and the memory space, one thing that I've mentioned plenty of times, it's a very commoditized product. It's also a very cyclical product. The reason it's commoditized is because this has heavy competition until now. But first, let's kind of look at earnings expectations. So for this current quarter, average estimates are about $1.77 on earnings per share. The low estimates are $1.73. The high estimates are $1.96. I personally believe it is going to beat the average estimate, but it's not going to be anywhere near that high estimate. So maybe somewhere around $1.80. Now, in forms of revenue is expected to be roughly $8.7 billion, where the low estimate is very close to that at 8.3. The high estimate is at 8.9. I believe it's going to be closer to $8.8 billion. Again, a nice beat overall, but what's really important is going to be guidance for the upcoming quarter. For the upcoming quarter, the high estimate is $9.5 billion and roughly $9 billion on average. So for at minimum, Micron is going to need to do at least $9 billion in guidance for next quarter, and I think that is possible. Like I mentioned, I do have a few screenshots here, and in forms of the HBM market, there's really only three manufacturers. There's Samsung, there's Micron, and there's SK Hynix. The one leading the pack is SK Hynix. The one second and kind of grabbing market share is Micron. Then there is Samsung, which unfortunately for Samsung shareholders is not doing so well in the HBM space. So right now it's a two market where Micron has a lot to grow because it is the number two player dominated by SK Hynix. Now, memory is used in everything in AI servers. So if you are bullish in AI, you're bullish that, hey, look, HBM is used on your CPU, it's used on your GPU, it's used on your accelerator, it's used in other solutions as well, like your IPU and your DPU, which a lot of AI centers have multiple of these per racks. So right now, we can see this huge growth opportunity as the architecture of data centers continues to grow at intensive level. Now, this is kind of a picture of a GPU, right? So this is kind of a GPU. You have your GPU die, and then through those die, you also have kind of like your HBM stack. This is your high bandwidth memory. High bandwidth memory is pretty much a lot of DRAMs tied together. And for them to do this is actually a very special process. So the great thing about this, and remember, just a quick backlog here, DRAM makes up most of the company's total revenue. Over 2/3, closer to 70% of the total revenue comes from DRAM. So here to make HBM, you're actually stacking up a lot of DRAM dies together. Unfortunately, the process of this is very difficult at the moment, that the yields are pretty low. So if you might need 4 DRAM dies, in theory, because of the yields, you're actually using a lot more, which is helping do the following. First, it's helping control the supply of DRAM, right? Because if you're using multiple DRAM to kind of get your great yields, you're kind of reducing that DRAM supply that was going to go on phones, that was going to go on laptops, and that was going to go everywhere else. So HBM is helping control supply. And because it's helping control supply, and since it is kind of a bottleneck in the AI accelerator space, and because there's only limited amount of players in this space, it does allow for a stronger pricing power compared to most memory solutions. I mean, I have a quote here that right now HBM takes about 3 times as many wafers as standard products to produce the same number of bits in a given technology. So in theory, if you're going to create kind of same bits of DRAM and HBM, you need 3 times more wafers, which again is helping control that supply. Now, as we look ahead, and this is the CEO of Micron Technology, as we look ahead into the 2026 timeframe, when we enter HBM4, it will take even a bigger ratio. And therefore, when we look at managing our overall supply, that is a very important consideration at all. And remember, it's not just about AI and DRAM, even though I haven't really talked about it much, and I'm not going to talk about it much. NAND is also one that can benefit from AI servers. So overall, I want to say for the market to continue to be bullish on Micron, a few things need to happen. First, Micron needs to continue to win market share in the HBM market. It needs to get that market share from SK Hynix. I know I have them somewhere here, right here. It needs to make sure that Samsung is still far ahead. So Micron needs to continue to innovate, and we need to get some strong guidance. But right now, at the end of the day, the market is kind of like a probability game. Right now, everything that we are hearing from the AI space is pointing to the direction that this can in fact happen. Now, let's just kind of do one more thing before I close out today's episode. I just want to look at Micron's PE ratio at the moment. So Micron's current PE ratio is pretty expensive at 159. Forward, which is the next 12 months, is at 12.4. And forward 1 year, which is 2 fiscal years from now, is at 8.4. So Micron is definitely sitting at cheap values. But remember, the memory market is very, very cyclical. Hopefully, HBM can kind of curb some of that cyclicality. But I personally believe usually the time to buy memory companies, it's when everything looks gloomy. Now things are looking a lot better. So obviously, there's a lot less reward available to you. But I think right now, there is a high possibility, not a guaranteed, that the HBM market can benefit Micron and we can see a nice run up after earnings. Personally, I'm not buying. I don't do any earnings gamble. But if the stock does drop and go the opposite direction, I think Micron will give us great buying opportunities. So I personally am not playing the investing game. I have plenty of stocks in the semiconductor market. And so I get to be very, very patient on when I get to add to any semiconductor space. If we do this, see the stock drop after earnings, I personally believe that's a great buying opportunity and will load up depending on the earnings call, which I would definitely cover. So take care, have a good day, and see you next time.